another dream last night. Like always, I fell asleep beside Hinata. The last thing I remembered was the quiet warmth of our bedroom then. I was somewhere else. When I opened my eyes, I found myself standing in a narrow alley. It was the middle of the night. Cold air drifted through the passage, carrying the smell of damp stone and overflowing garbage bins. Moonlight barely reached the ground between the tall buildings, leaving most of the alley buried in shadow. For several seconds I simply stood there, confused. Where am I? I looked around, expecting someone to answer. No one did. I couldn't even remember how I'd got there. One moment I had been lying beside Hinata. The next I was standing in this unfamiliar place. Before I could make sense of it, a wooden door nearby creaked open. Warm yellow light spilled into the alley, cutting through the darkness. A young girl stepped outside carrying a small trash bag. She yawned and casually called back into the house. "Mom, I'm taking the trash to the dumpster." I immediately waved at her. Hey, she didn't react. I frowned. Excuse me, nothing. She walked right past me toward the dumpster, without even glancing in my direction. Maybe she hadn't heard me. I raised my voice. Hey, over here. Still nothing. For some reason, I even stepped in front of her and tried waving both hands. Nothing. She acted as though I wasn't even there. She tossed the bag into the dumpster and turned around. I remained standing directly in her path. Now she'll definitely stop. She didn't. She walked straight through me, not around me, through me. I froze. For a single heartbeat, my mind went completely blank. My body hadn't resisted. There had been no impact, no sensation. It was as if neither of us had existed. Am I dead? The thought struck harder than I wanted to admit. No, I shook my head almost immediately. That can't be it. If I were dead. Why did everything feel so real? I could feel the cold air brushing against my skin. I could smell the garbage. I could hear distant voices somewhere beyond the alley. This wasn't like any dream I'd ever had. Then a metallic clink shattered the silence. I turned instinctively. Near the dumpster, an empty glass bottle rolled slowly across the ground. A stray cat darted between two crates before disappearing into the darkness. At the exact same moment, someone else reacted. Behind the dumpster, a boy suddenly straightened. He couldn't have been older than 11 or 12. His face was completely hidden behind a simple black cloth mask with nothing but two openings for his eyes. He had been searching through the trash. Without thinking, I walked toward him. Hey, no response. I tried again. Nothing. I reached out. My hand passed straight through his shoulder, just like before. The boy never even noticed. Instead, he leaned farther into the dumpster, carefully pulling out several worn scrolls and a stack of old books wrapped in cloth. His eyes lit up, not with greed, with excitement. The kind of excitement I'd seen in people who had finally found something they desperately needed. He quietly muttered to himself. Looks like someone cleaned out their supplies. He lifted another scroll. Books too. A faint smile reached his eyes. Just what I needed. Before I could think about what that meant, crash. Another bottle toppled over nearby. The sound echoed through the alley. Both of us reacted instantly. The masked boy melted into the shadows beside the dumpster, and without thinking I hid too. Pressing myself against the wall. A nearby door creaked open. Someone peeked outside, looked around, saw nothing. Then quietly shut the door again. Only after the footsteps disappeared did I blink. Why did I hide? I stared at my own hands. They can't even see me, even alone. I felt strangely embarrassed. Naruto rubbed the back of his head with a sheepish laugh. Old habits die hard. Kakashi's visible eye curved into a smile. Years of shinobi training. Hinata couldn't help smiling as well before Naruto lowered his eyes to the diary and continued reading. The masked boy wasted no time. He stuffed the recovered scrolls and books into a worn plastic bag before tying it shut. He never ran, he simply disappeared. From one shadow to the next, between fences, behind abandoned sheds, through narrow gaps between buildings. Every movement was deliberate. Every route avoided open ground. He was never exposed for more than a second. I don't know why, but I followed him. I never questioned it. Something deep inside me refused to let him out of my sight. Naruto paused. I still don't know why I followed him. He looked up from the diary. Something just told me not to lose sight of him. Kakashi nodded thoughtfully. Instinct. Naruto quietly agreed before continuing. As we moved through the village, something began bothering me. The streets, the buildings, the rooftops. Everything looked familiar, painfully familiar. It was Konoha, or it looked like Konoha. But something about it felt wrong, not broken, not destroyed, just different. I couldn't explain it. Only that every step made the feeling stronger. Hinata looked at Naruto. So even then you knew something was unusual. Naruto nodded once. I just couldn't explain why. He turned another page. The boy finally stopped beside a thick patch of overgrown bushes. He remained perfectly still, watching, listening, making absolutely certain nobody was nearby, satisfied. He reached beneath the tangled branches. A soft click echoed beneath the ground. The bushes shifted slightly. Hidden underneath them, an underground hatch slowly lifted open. Dark stone steps descended into complete darkness, without hesitating. The boy disappeared below. My curiosity won. I followed. The underground room wasn't large, but it was unlike anything I'd expected. Wooden shelves lined the walls, every one of them packed with scrolls, books, maps, handwritten notes. Storage crates filled one corner. Another contained neatly organized weapons, kunai, shuriken, smoke bombs, wire soldier pills. Several swords I'd never even seen before. Thin wires stretched almost invisibly across parts of the room, simple traps. Enough that anyone charging inside carelessly would have regretted it immediately. I remember standing there completely stunned at the time. I honestly thought I'd stumbled into some hidden Anbu supply room. Naruto stopped reading again. That's honestly what I believed. Kakashi immediately shook his head. Anbu wouldn't leave a storage room like that completely unguarded. Naruto gave a small smile. I know that now. He lowered his eyes to the final lines on the page. The boy quietly placed the plastic bag on a wooden desk. He glanced toward an old clock hanging on the wall. No time. He reached for his mask for a moment. I thought he was about to remove it completely. Instead, he only pulled it down far enough to uncover the upper half of his face. I stopped breathing. Blonde hair, bright blue eyes. 3 whisker-like marks on each cheek. The face, it was my face, not similar, not familiar, mine. He looked exactly like I had before becoming a genin. Every feature was the same except he wasn't the scrawny kid I remembered. His body was lean, athletic. Like someone who had spent years training beyond what any academy student should. I couldn't look away. I remember just staring. I genuinely thought I was looking at myself. Naruto closed the diary for a moment. The room became quiet. Hinata looked at him. Can I ask you something? Naruto nodded. I understand dreaming about places. I understand dreaming about people. But why would you dream about yourself? Naruto looked down at the diary for several seconds before answering. At the time, I kept asking myself the same question. Kakashi rested his chin on one hand, and Naruto smiled faintly. I don't think I should answer that yet. Hinata tilted her head. What do you mean? Naruto tapped the diary gently. Because the diary answers that question better than I ever could. Kakashi watched him carefully. So you already have an idea. Naruto was silent for a moment. Maybe. But if I tell you now, I'll be skipping part of the story. He looked between the two of them. I'd rather you reach the same conclusions I did. Hinata nodded slowly. So we keep reading. Naruto smiled. I think that's for the best. Kakashi folded his arms. I don't like suspense. Naruto laughed. I know. Kakashi's eye curved into a smile, but go on. Naruto looked back at the diary. The next few pages were when I started realizing these dreams didn't behave like ordinary dreams. He paused. But I'm getting ahead of myself. He turned the page. Without another thought, the blonde boy pulled the black cloth mask free and tossed it onto the desk beside the plastic bag for the first time. He looked completely at ease, no caution, no tension, no hesitation. He crossed the room toward a sturdy wooden crate resting against the wall and lifted its lid. Inside, everything was arranged with almost unbelievable precision. A neatly folded orange jacket, blue pants, blue shinobi sandals, orange goggles. Every piece had its own place. Nothing was wrinkled. Nothing had been carelessly thrown inside. It looked less like a child's collection of clothes, and more like equipment prepared before a mission. He didn't waste a second. With practiced movements, he changed into the familiar outfit. The dark clothes disappeared beneath the bright orange jacket. Blue pants followed. Then the blue sandals, finally. He reached into the crate and picked up the orange goggles. He rested them across his forehead. Every movement was effortless. like someone repeating the same routine for the thousandth time. I couldn't look away, the orange jacket, the goggles, the sandals. Every detail belonged to the boy I used to be, or the boy I thought I used to be. When he finished, he stepped in front of a cracked mirror hanging on the stone wall. For several long moments, he simply stared at his own reflection. Then he straightened the collar, adjusted the goggles, pulled one sleeve into place, checked every small detail. Not because he admired himself, because he was making sure everything looked convincing, like an actor preparing to walk onto a stage. A quiet sigh escaped him. Today's the last day. His fingers rested lightly against the edge of the goggles. I have to wear this ridiculous costume. His eyes never left the mirror. Then almost under his breath he finished. And pretend to be someone I'm not. The room fell silent. I just stared at him. Pretend. The word echoed through my mind. I didn't understand, not the clothes, not the careful routine, and certainly not what he just said. The Naruto I remembered. The loud, reckless kid who couldn't stop shouting about becoming Hokage. That wasn't an act, was it? Without another word, he picked up the plastic bag from the desk, turned away from the mirror, and headed toward the stone staircase leading back to the surface. I followed, honestly. After everything I'd seen so far, I was simply curious. I follow him back up the narrow stone staircase. The moment we reach the surface, he crouches beside the thick bushes. With practiced hands, he lowers the hidden hatch into place. A soft click echoes beneath the ground. He brushes the tangled branches back over it, covering every trace of the entrance. When he finally stands, there is no sign that anything had ever been hidden there. For a brief moment, he studies the area, satisfied. Then he simply turns and starts walking. I follow. Almost immediately, something feels different. The careful caution from before is gone. No more slipping from shadow to shadow. No more stopping to listen. No more checking every corner. His shoulders loosen. His pace becomes almost lazy. Like someone whose dangerous work for the morning has finally ended. I quietly walk behind him, honestly. The village slowly comes alive around us. Shopkeepers slide open wooden shutters. The smell of fresh bread drifts through the streets. Children race past laughing. Villagers carry baskets toward the market. Everything feels normal. Almost painfully normal. Yet something keeps bothering me, the streets, the rooftops, the buildings. Everything looks exactly like Konoha, and yet, something refuses to fit. My eyes wander across the village, then, almost absent-mindedly, I look up. My footsteps stop. High above the village, the Hokage rock watches over Konoha, but only 4 faces stare back. Hashirama, Tabarama, the third, my father. Only 4. I continue staring. Wait, a strange thought quietly forms. Am I seeing the past? The idea lasts barely a second. I immediately shake my head. No, don't be stupid. Dreams don't work like that. I let out a quiet breath and continue walking after him. Even then, the thought refuses to disappear. Naruto looked up from the diary. A small, embarrassed smile appeared on his face. I actually convinced myself I was imagining things. Kakashi's visible eye curved into an amused smile. You argued yourself out of the correct conclusion. Naruto laughed softly. Yeah, looking back, I probably should have paid more attention. Hinata smiled gently. At least you kept reading. Naruto nodded, luckily. He lowered his eyes back to the diary and turned the page. The academy came into view. Almost instantly he changed. The relaxed walk disappeared as though it had never existed. His shoulders straightened. A bright grin spread across his face. Then he broke into a run. It looked exactly like the Naruto everyone in Konoha, and I remembered. I slowed my pace. After everything I'd seen underground, after hearing him call that orange jacket a costume, I couldn't help wondering which one was the real him. Uruka stood outside the classroom door, quietly watching the academy courtyard. Another year. It had gone by faster than he expected. Today was the final day he would see this class together. For an entire year they had laughed, argued, trained, and grown under his watch. He hoped every one of them would pass. Good morning, Uruka-sensei. The cheerful voice made him instinctively glance to his left. No one. He looked to his right. Still no one. Then he lowered his eyes. Standing there with an enormous grin was the familiar blonde troublemaker, Naruto. A warm smile appeared on Uruka's face despite himself. Ready for today's exam? Naruto answered with complete confidence. Of course. I've got to pass if I'm ever gonna become Hokage. Iruka let out a quiet sigh. Naruto blinked. What? Iruka chuckled softly. I was just wondering how many countless times you've said those exact words. He shook his head with a fond smile. Be serious today. You've already failed twice. Naruto pointed at himself with renewed determination. Today's different. This time it'll be different. I couldn't help smiling. Some things really never changed. Both of them entered in the classroom. Iruka smiled faintly. All right, go on, take your seat. Naruto gave him a quick grin. Yes, sir. Without another word, he hurried into the classroom. I followed. The moment I stepped through the doorway, everything felt familiar. The wooden desks, the sunlight spilling through the windows, the excited chatter filling the room. Faces I hadn't seen together in years. For just a moment, I simply smiled. Then my eyes wandered toward the middle of the classroom. My smile faded. Mizuki. He stood exactly where I remembered him. The same gentle smile, the same calm expression, as if he were nothing more than another academy instructor. My expression darkened. The forbidden scroll, his plan. I remembered everything. My eyes instinctively shifted toward Iruka. He was watching the classroom as the students settled into their seats. Then, for just the briefest moment, his eyes drifted toward Mizuki. There was something on his face, not certainty, not distrust, just a faint suspicion. It vanished almost as quickly as it appeared. Iruka simply turned back to his students. I couldn't help wondering, had he sensed something even back then? The classroom slowly settled into silence. Sheets of paper slid across wooden desks. The quiet murmur of nervous students faded as Iruka stepped to the front of the room. Today marks your graduation examination. His voice carried easily through the classroom. You'll begin with the written test. If you pass, you'll move on to the practical examination. Do your best. Dozens of pencils touched paper. The room filled with nothing but scratching graphite. I found myself watching him. At first, nothing seemed unusual. He frowned at a few questions, scratched the back of his head, muttered under his breath once or twice. Exactly like the Naruto everyone remembered. Yet, the longer I watched, the more something felt wrong. Not because he struggled, because he struggled at exactly the right moments. His pencil never hesitated for long. Every answer came just quickly enough. Every pause looked intentional. Minutes passed. Then he simply stopped writing. His pencil rested beside the paper. He leaned back in his chair. I glanced toward his exam sheet. He hadn't answered everything, not even close, just enough. Maybe 2 or 3 questions more than what would comfortably earn a passing score, no more, no less. He knew exactly how much was enough. The written examination ended. Papers were collected. The desks were pushed aside. Students gathered near the front of the classroom as Iruka prepared for the practical portion. Transformation technique first, Iruka announced. After that, substitution technique. And finally, the clone technique. One by one, names were called. Some students passed with ease. Others barely managed. Then Sasuke Uchiha. The atmosphere changed almost immediately. Whispers spread across the classroom. Several students leaned forward. Even a few instructors seemed to straighten ever so slightly. I noticed it immediately. It wasn't just the students. Even the teachers expected perfection. Beside me, the other Naruto folded his arms and quietly muttered, "Here comes the Emo King." I couldn't stop the corner of my mouth from lifting. Some things really never changed. Sasuke stepped forward without a word. Transformation technique, a puff of smoke, perfect, no hesitation. Substitution technique, flawless, clean, effortless. And finally, the clone technique. 3 identical clones appeared beside him, perfectly formed, perfect posture, perfect control. Iruka gave an approving nod. Several students stared in admiration. Even Mizuki smiled pleasantly. Sasuke simply turned and returned to his seat without saying a word. The whispers followed him all the way back. Then Iruka looked toward the next name, Naruto Uzumaki. The blonde boy stepped forward with his usual grin. I watched him carefully now. I wasn't watching the loud troublemaker everyone else saw. I was watching the boy from the underground shelter. The one who had called this face a costume. Transformation technique. He formed the hand seals, his chakra wavered. At least it appeared to. For a brief second he looked frustrated. Then a clean transformation, not perfect. Just convincing enough. Iruka nodded. Substitution technique, again a tiny pause, a slight stumble. Just enough hesitation to look believable. Then success, clean, controlled. My eyes narrowed. He's acting, not perfectly, not dramatically. Just enough to convince everyone watching that he was barely scraping by. Only someone searching for it would notice. And finally, the clone technique. The classroom grew quiet. I remembered this moment. I remembered standing exactly where he stood. I remembered the embarrassment, the disappointment, the laughter. The blond boy slowly brought his hands together. His breathing steadied. His chakra gathered, it was stable. Far more stable than mine had ever been at that age. For the briefest moment, I was certain he can do it. Then something changed, a tiny movement. So small almost no one would notice. My eyes shifted toward Mizuki. He still wore that same gentle smile. His arms remained comfortably folded beneath his sleeves, but one hand moved just slightly. Two fingers crossed beneath the cloth, almost invisible. A faint ripple of chakra escaped him, so subtle. No ordinary academy student would ever sense it. The ripple brushed against Naruto's own chakra at the exact moment the technique reached completion. The blond boy's eyes flickered for a fraction of a second. His concentration broke. Smoke filled the room when it cleared. 3 clones stood beside him, but only halfway. Their bodies lacked strength. Their posture sagged. The technique had failed. A disappointed murmur spread through the classroom, yet I couldn't look away, even incomplete. They wore orange jackets, blue pants, proper sandals. Every detail was there. Not those pale, blanket-like figures I remembered creating. Not the embarrassing things I'd produced. These were real clones that had simply failed to stabilize. Even after someone interfered, they were still better than mine had ever been. The last traces of white smoke drifted toward the ceiling before fading into nothing. The 3 malformed clones wobbled unsteadily for only a moment before dissolving into pale clouds one after another. The room fell silent. Iruka lowered the clipboard in his hands, disappointment flickering across his face. Fail, no argument came. No desperate plea for another chance. The blond boy simply gave a small nod, as though he had already expected the verdict long before stepping into the examination area. He turned, walked past Iruka, walked past Mizuki. The faint creak of the classroom door echoed as it slid open. For the briefest instant, I looked at Mizuki. His hands were folded casually inside his sleeves. His face wore the same gentle smile. If I hadn't seen it, if I hadn't watched the tiny disruption in chakra with my own eyes, I would have believed he had done nothing. You should have passed. Those clones weren't perfect, but they were enough. The door closed behind the other Naruto. I immediately followed. He failed again. The voice stopped me. I didn't turn around. How many times has that been? I lost count. A few students laughed quietly. I thought the academy would stop letting him take the exam seriously. Imagine ending up on his team. Good thing we don't have to worry about that anymore. I almost felt bad, almost. The laughter wasn't loud, it wasn't cruel, it was casual. Like they were talking about tomorrow's weather. I stood there for a second, listening. No one defended him, not one voice. Not even a simple come on, nothing. Just quiet agreement. I tightened my fist. Some things never really changed. Without another glance, I stepped into the hallway, empty. The afternoon sunlight stretched across the wooden floor through the open windows. He wasn't there. I looked down both ends of the corridor, nothing, already gone. I picked up my pace. Out into the academy courtyard. Children ran excitedly toward waiting parents. Fresh forehead protectors gleamed beneath the afternoon sun. Friends laughed together, comparing scores from the written exam. Talking excitedly about tomorrow, about becoming genin, about finally beginning their lives as shinobi. Teachers watched with quiet smiles. The academy felt alive, yet the one person I was looking for had vanished. I searched the courtyard, nothing, the front gate, nothing. The nearby rooftops, nothing. A small smile tugged at the corner of my mouth despite everything. You're even harder to find than I expected. My search carried me farther from the crowd. The sounds of celebration slowly faded behind me. Without thinking, my feet followed a path I had walked countless times in another life, the old swing. It hung beneath the broad tree exactly as I remembered, empty. For a long moment, I simply stared at the empty swing. A small crease formed between my brows. Not here. I was sure this was where I'd find you. A gentle rustle drifted down from the branches. Almost without thinking, I lifted my head. There you were. High above the swing. Sitting comfortably on a thick branch hidden among the leaves. One arm rested behind your head like a pillow. One leg lay casually crossed over the other, completely relaxed from up there. You could see the entire academy, the students, the teachers, the families, everyone. Yet no one looked up. No one even knew you were there, found you. The words escaped as little more than a whisper. With practiced ease I climbed the tree. When I reached the branch, I settled down beside you, leaving a small distance between us. You never reacted, you couldn't together. We watched the academy below. I looked at you for a moment, then back toward the celebration. You never failed that exam. I saw what Mizuki did. He interfered with your chakra. You should have graduated today. If only you knew that. Below us, a familiar voice finally broke the silence. Naruto. Both of us looked down. Mizuki.